Let's talk about what works, the upper lats versus the lower lats. I get this question all the time. And here's the rule. Muscles always pull parallel to their fibers. So if you say, I want to work my lower lats, right, and you know that those lower lat muscle fibers travel downward, right, that means the resistance has to come from upward. Why? Because muscles always pull towards their origins. In other words, let's just say that you are a little man standing on someone's spine, and those muscle fibers were ropes. Let's just say I'm that little man, and I'm holding this rope that's connected to the upper arm bone, and I'm gonna yank that upper arm bone down as I was just doing this pull down, right? Well, I'm gonna always pull towards my origin. I can do nothing else but pull towards my origin, right? I can't pull towards the upper back if I'm standing in the lower back, right? Muscles always pull consistent to their fibers. That's why, for example, when you're doing an incline dumbbell press, you're moving upward because those fibers move upward. When you're doing a decline press to work the lower pecs, you're pushing downward. You're pushing parallel to those fibers. Muscles always pull parallel to their fibers. They can't pull horizontally or in any direction other than parallel to them, to the fibers. Okay, we're gonna explain some simple levers here. Now, when I was doing that dumbbell press just now, you may have noticed that that dumbbell in my hand was directly over my elbow. That meant that this lever was completely neutral. My bicep wasn't having to work, my tricep wasn't having to work, my internal rotator wasn't working, my external rotator wasn't working. The only lever that works is the lever that crosses perpendicularly to resistance, in this case gravity, and that was my upper arm bone. Right? In other words, my forearm was parallel to gravity. That makes it neutral. So I'm going to show you something here. If I let this dumbbell go out, this lever now is no longer completely parallel to gravity. It's now being affected by the fact that it's leaning to the outside and the bicep is getting involved. Here it is neutral again. As I bring it to the inside, now the tricep starts to get involved. Now if I bring it to the outside like this, in order to keep this thing from falling all the way back, the internal rotator starts to work. Neutral again. If I go to the inside, the external rotator starts to work, okay? So this is the fundamental rule. When levers are active, they're crossing resistance. When they're neutral, they're parallel to resistance. This is enormous. It means that when you do a parallel bar dip, you're not really doing as much tricep as you think you're doing, right? Because the tricep works the forearm, and the forearm is almost parallel to gravity. As you go down into a parallel bar dip, and I'll show you one in just a minute, you notice that the upper arm bone is what's crossing gravity, and it's being worked by the front deltoid. Okay, now when you're doing this here, the question is often asked, should I use a wide grip or a narrow grip? Well, it doesn't matter because the pectoral muscle is only pulling on this bone. If you straighten your arm, you lengthen the lever. If you bend your arm, you shorten the lever. But it doesn't change the mechanics of the interaction between the pectoral muscle and the upper arm bone.